Today I wanted to make this video since I've been watching a lot of these shows and I've been having this thought in my mind. And I kind of have to agree with the article that I read with Undertaker. It kind of sucks that, in my opinion, that kayfabe is dead now in wrestling. It just doesn't exist anymore. Like back in the 80s and early 90s and the 70s, and when wrestling was still, in that time period, kayfabe was a thing. Like wrestlers sacredly protected their character and lived that lie of the character that they were, even when they were out in the general public. Like, for example, Undertaker didn't do interviews and he always had black on and he always portrayed the gimmick. And that's what wrestlers did back in the 80s and 70s, and they lived that gimmick. They were that person. Jake Roberts was that guy. Hulk Hogan lived that. Even though when the cameras went down, they always wanted to protect their character and keep it sacred and not let people think otherwise. So that way, when you see them, you ultimately believe that that's the person that they were. And another prime example is one of the greatest wrestlers, Abdullah the Butcher. Like when he would go out on his days off to the restaurants, even though he was supposed to be a wrestler who was from Sudan, and that whole thing that he portrayed, he was actually from Ontario, Canada. But just to keep his character sacred and not have people think otherwise, he would go to the restaurants and he would try to speak in their language, the Saudi Arabian language. And that's how far these guys would take the extent to keeping their character sacred and having people believe them. And that's an aspect of wrestling to me that has been dead for a very long time, because now it's so much not the wrestler's fault, it's more of the society that we live in now. With social media and the internet and everything, it kind of kills the kayfabe out, because you know everything that's going on behind the stage. You know how personal, not, I wouldn't say that personal, but you know everything that's going on with that character's personal life and what they really do and how they really are when they're not that character. As in when you were in the 80s and the 90s, that's all you knew. We didn't have social media, and you believed Austin to be that person. Austin was that guy. Stone Cold was that guy. Hulk Hogan was the ultimate superhero, and that's why I feel like wrestling too was a lot better back then, because you were strictly devoted to that story and that character, and you didn't care about what happened behind the scenes. But now with social media, it's changed, and it's kind of ruined that art of kayfabe. And I don't know. That's why, in my personal opinion, wrestling has been different throughout the years. I know a lot of people don't like it because you don't get to go behind the scenes and, get to know about that character and their person and everything, how they are behind the scenes and out of the ring. But it was always a thing. It's like a preference. Like Undertaker says, if it was up to him, they would still all be in kayfabe, which is kind of interesting. But I think Undertaker has a good point. I feel like if the characters were all still in kayfabe, wrestling still to this day would feel more realistic. Just my opinion. But the reason why I honestly think kayfabe died was through the simple fact that social media and the internet put out all this dirt about wrestlers and everything else behind the scenes when they're not in the ring, which ultimately kills that art style of keeping your character sacred, living that lie. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, guys, that's what my thoughts are on kayfabe, and definitely stay tuned for all my other videos that I